not much out there other than if a locality chooses to exempt a classification, like seniors or...
Exactly. So for instance, if you've got, I mean, we don't have it now, but if you've got something like Fairfax has, where there's actual deed restrictions and that property, you know, has to maintain affordability for a 50-year period, but there should be some recognition of that because there's certainly going to impact the value of future sales.
So ADU properties, or I do some work with the Community Land Trust here in Charlottesville. Yeah. So there's long-term permanent affordability restrictions that run with the land,
and they reduce it. They do reduce it to market value.
They reduce it.
I mean, those restrictions actually do reduce the market.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And a lot of assessors don't take that into account.
Yes. Okay. Any particular issues here regarding foreclosure or predatory? I know the predatory issues have, I think, not been so much of an issue in this part of the state. They're very profound in Hampton Roads, especially around military bases, and that is a part of how we have tried to explain those programs to lawmakers, is that military, enlisted military are targeted, explicitly targeted under predatory lending programs. But we're still working it.
Makes sense of land use over and the anti-landing. Is there anything specifically to kind of fight off the anti-rental feeling that a lot of cities have, which comes up again when you're trying to rezone? I guess it could be anti-affordable housing, but it's specifically we don't want to more rental.
Yeah. Well, there was legislation, and there may be again this year. This specifically what this anti-NIMBY is a reference to. A couple years ago, there was an effort to include affordable housing as a protected class in Virginia's fair housing law, and so it would give a developer or someone trying to develop affordable housing, if they were denied rezoning, it would give them an additional way to contest that. If they could make a case that it had, that it was based on income or the income restrictions associated with whatever their project was. That bill was not successful. It has been kicking around the Housing Commission. Shay, I don't know if you know the current status of it, but I don't know if it's going to emerge as a Housing Commission bill this next session or not. But I know that it's being talked about, and there's been some negotiation going on to see if acceptable language could be agreed upon by all the parties who are concerned. In localities, I mean, I know a number of you from localities. Localities had some legitimate concerns about that bill and the ability or the potential challenges that it would create for them in terms of land use.
Wasn't part of that as well, so that it couldn't be published in the paper that no vouchers were accepted? I mean, that's pretty insulting to, it's like, almost like saying no blacks accept, or no old people, or whatever it is. I mean, because you see those ads in the newspaper.
Yeah. That was not a part of that particular legislation, but that is an issue.
Fair housing issue, that goes with it.
Yeah, that's okay. Good point. Other thoughts? So, one of the things, of course, that is very positively viewed by most members of the General Assembly are programs that affect veterans. We've got veterans facing lots of issues, including homelessness, including foreclosure, including issues with accessibility for vets who come home with a variety of disabilities. Is that an issue up in this area that any of you have been working on? there's any particular aspects. We would like to see if we can find a way to craft some kind of an initiative which has a focus on veterans and housing, and that's just a much easier door to open in the General Assembly if you can start talking about clearly a group of Virginia citizens that everyone supports and wants to help and recognizes needs they have.
To my knowledge, we've had one HUD bash voucher here in this community in the last 5 years. So we don't get a lot of the resources for HUD that come through for homeless vets. And while we continue to advocate for the population here, it's a smaller population than in other communities, but it's equal in its needs. And so I'm always confused about why there isn't sort of more geographic distribution of those HUD vouchers, particularly the bash vouchers.
Yeah, I don't know.
One of the
Go ahead.
problems I found with the bash voucher, and this isn't something that you can rectify with housing, but it's transportation, because the voucher requires that they go to Richmond or wherever the nearest veteran center is for ongoing case management. So to travel, from Green County, which is where we are, to Richmond on a regular basis.
In my understanding, there's some federal legislation that is pushing that VAs actually do contracting then with local service providers, because that is such a huge barrier for communities that don't have a health center, medical health center, or who are rural, of course, too. So that is an attempt to modify that problem. So.
Whenever we pick out a group and prioritize them at the expense of other people, there's always the opposite or some kind of issues. When we did teachers and firemen and policemen, we left out all the people who were guidance counselors and ambulance drivers and all that. And so there's always that other side to that, those arguments.
Absolutely. On accessibility, this is something Shane and I have been talking a little bit about. There is, some of you may be familiar with, there's a state tax credit that's available to, it's a very limited amount of money, $1 million, that's available to folks to help make homes more accessible. There were some changes to that program legislatively a couple of years ago, and the utilization of it has really picked up. I think it's close to being fully utilized now, not quite there. But again, especially in the context of Olmsted and bringing people out of institutions and back into the community and community living, this kind of accessibility program might be a way to find some support amongst members of the General Assembly. And so that's something we may be looking at. We have not been focused on it so much because it's hard to make the case to expand the program until it's being fully utilized. But I think we're getting very close to that point, so that's something that we might pick up on in 2013.
Are those the accessibility funds that we use for repairs?
No, this is a tax credit, and you get the tax credit if you as a homeowner make accessibility improvements to your unit, or if you as a contractor or developer build an accessible or visitable home. The emergency home repair money is that same small little bit of money we've had that needs
but
to
then
be.
there was another stream, I don't know if that was sort of a first come, first served, in addition to the emergency repair funds.
That was some returned funds that we had to move real quick.
Permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing budget amendments, Robin, I think you maybe alluded to those, but you definitely will be promoting, be getting budget amendments introduced in this in the 2013
Right.
session.
There's also the possibility that the governor or someone in the administration wants to already put that in, so we'll stay tuned for that. But if it's not put in by someone else, we'll be advocating for budget amendments again.
Yes.
I would hope that